Imagine an 18-year-old on the cusp of the future she'd spent years building. A quiet, driven high school graduate with a singular focus: cosmetology. Her name was Destiny Williams, and her dream was pinned on a single job interview. She was heading to Calumet City to secure the money she needed for tuition at Pivot Point Academy. When she was last seen, she was wearing a black hoodie, crossing a gas station parking lot. She was with a man named Marcus Patterson, and in her mind, he was Mark, a corporate professional, her prospective boss. The reality was pure evil. This was not an interview, it was an abduction. In less than 30 minutes, Destiny's phone would be turned off forever, and her carefully planned life would vanish. This is the true story of a predator who used the trust and ambition of young women as bait, and the desperate, heartbreaking race by a family and a best friend to prove that their loved one was not a runaway, but the victim of a calculated, multi-state trafficking ring. It is a terrifying, cautionary tale that exposes the digital ghost identities used by criminal enterprises and shows how a mother's instinct and a friend's dedication ultimately broke a case that law enforcement initially missed. Destiny Williams was the steady hand in a fractured family. Raised in Englewood on Chicago's South Side, she lived with and cared for her grandmother, while her mother battled addiction and her father was serving a sentence. Her focus was singular: save enough money for school. Her Instagram wasn't for socializing, it was a portfolio of hair and makeup tutorials, a testament to her ambition. When she didn't return home by 6 p.m., on September 18th, the worry quickly turned to dread. By 8 p.m., after calls went unanswered, Destiny's grandmother made the first of many calls. Each one went directly to voicemail. The deep sense of fear solidified into a formal report to the Chicago Police Department just before midnight. The details logged by the dispatcher: an 18-year-old female, no history of running away, last seen heading to a job interview in the suburbs, were immediately misinterpreted. To the police, the initial facts fit a familiar pattern for someone her age. The case was initially, and tragically, handled as a potential runaway. This procedural decision, while standard for a person her age and the lack of immediate foul play, created a critical delay. The investigation did not begin with the urgency of an abduction, but the official classification stood in stark contrast to the person Destiny Williams was. Her family insisted she was not a runaway. She was a planner, a dreamer who was on the cusp of building the life she wanted. The grandmother told responding officers that Destiny had an interview with a company called Elevate Marketing Solutions. She had an address, and she had a name: Mark. Investigators were about to discover that the man who called himself Mark was a phantom built from digital illusions. The job posting Destiny found on Indeed.com in late August was a masterpiece of deception. Titled Personal Assistant and Social Media Manager, the listing used professional language and promised a competitive wage of $22 per hour. It even listed a legitimate-looking Chicago office address, all carefully designed to attract ambitious young people just like Destiny. When Destiny applied, Mark's response was swift and professional. Their correspondence, later recovered from Destiny's email account, showed a series of normal interactions. Mark conducted a preliminary interview over the phone, asking standard questions about her experience and goals. He spoke convincingly about the company's clients and growth, building a foundation of trust, brick by digital brick. When it was time for an in-person interview, he had a ready-made, calculated excuse for the location change. He told her their main office was undergoing renovations, so they would meet at a satellite office in a Calumet City executive suite building. He sent her the address and arranged to pick her up from a nearby gas station, explaining that the office entrance was tricky to find. This was the final step of the trap. Only after her disappearance did investigators begin pulling at the threads of the story. They found that Elevate Marketing Solutions had no business registration, no employees, and no clients. The professional website was a digital ghost created just a few months prior. and the executive suite building on Torrance Avenue had no record of the company ever being a tenant. The entire operation was a carefully constructed trap, and police would soon discover that Destiny was not the first woman Mark had tried to lure with this scheme. But she was the first one who hadn't walked away. On the afternoon of September 18th, Destiny followed the instructions Marcus Patterson had given her. She took the CTA Red Line south and then transferred to a bus heading toward Calumet City, with her final destination being the Shell gas station parking lot Patterson designated as their meeting point. At approximately 2:47 p.m., the station security cameras captured Patterson's black Nissan Altima pulling in. A few moments later, footage showed him and Destiny walking together across the asphalt. It was the last time any camera would record her. Cell phone records would later show that her phone was powered off or disabled at 3:15 p.m., just 28 minutes after she was seen on camera with Patterson. In that short window, in or near that parking lot, she had vanished completely. While her family pleaded with authorities to investigate the job interview as a potential lead, the official runaway case file sat in a queue. The official runaway theory only collapsed under the weight of digital evidence unearthed not by police, but by Destiny's best friend, Janae. Frantically searching for clues, Janae accessed Destiny's email and Instagram and found the entire history of her communication with Mark. She immediately turned over the login information to detectives, providing the investigation with its first tangible leads: the company name, the email address, and the phone number the suspect used. Investigators confirmed that state business records showed Elevate Marketing Solutions did not exist. The website associated with the company had been created only a few months earlier, using a service that masked the owner's identity. The phone number Mark used traced back to a prepaid burner phone, activated shortly before he first contacted Destiny and disconnected shortly after her disappearance. It was a digital dead end designed to be untraceable. The real breakthrough came from the email address. While the account was anonymous, the IP address, a unique identifier for a computer's location, was not. Cybercrime analysts traced the origin of Mark's emails to a public library in Gary, Indiana. This critical discovery shifted the geographic scope of the investigation across state lines. Detectives obtained security footage from the library and saw a man matching the gas station video description using the public computers on multiple dates. They now had a clearer image of their suspect, but still no name. The discovery also revealed a chilling pattern. Investigators found similar fake job postings in Indianapolis and Milwaukee, all linked to the same methods. They were no longer searching for one missing girl. They were hunting a serial predator. While the digital trail pointed investigators toward Indiana, the most critical clue came from the physical world: the Calumet City gas station parking lot. Detectives meticulously reviewed hours of security footage from every available angle, searching for the vehicle the suspect had used. They found it: a well-maintained black Nissan Altima. Although the man had parked out of the primary camera's direct view, another angle captured his license plate as he entered the lot. A query through the National Motor Vehicle Database provided the name they had been searching for. The car was registered to Marcus Patterson of Atlanta, Georgia. A background check revealed a man with no criminal history. He was 34 years old, employed in warehouse management, married, and the father of 2 young daughters. On paper, he was an ordinary suburban family man, completely disconnected from the dark underworld of abduction and human trafficking. The facade of his double life began to crumble when the FBI and Atlanta Police Department contacted Patterson's wife. She was completely stunned, but confirmed her husband was currently away from home, traveling in the Midwest for what she believed were legitimate work contracts in logistics. His trips had become more frequent over the past 9 months. But she had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. The digital ghost from the Gary library and the man on the gas station footage had a name, a family, and a home address. The hunt was no longer for a shadow. It was for Marcus Patterson. In early November, the investigation culminated in the quiet suburbs of Stone Mountain, Georgia. Federal agents and local police arrested Marcus Patterson at his family home without incident. The man taken into custody seemed a world away from the predator they had been hunting. A suburban father whose neighbors knew him only as a quiet family man. Investigators had expected to find evidence of a trafficking kingpin. Instead, during his interrogation, Patterson offered a confession that twisted the entire narrative of the case. He did not deny his role in Destiny Williams's disappearance. However, he claimed he was not a willing participant, but a coerced pawn in a much larger criminal organization. Patterson explained that years prior, a severe gambling addiction had left him with an $85,000 debt to a man named Donnell Cruz, a formidable figure who operated between Chicago and Detroit. When Patterson couldn't pay, Cruz offered him an alternative. The debt would be forgiven if he agreed to recruit young women for Cruz's trafficking operation. His job was to create the fake profiles, gain their trust, and deliver them to a designated location. Patterson insisted he had tried to back out, but Cruz had made it clear that failure to cooperate would result in the murder of his wife and 2 young daughters. He claimed he had only delivered Destiny because his own family's lives were under direct threat. In a desperate bid for leniency, he gave investigators the one piece of information they needed to blow the case wide open: the address of an abandoned steel mill off Broadway Avenue in Gary, Indiana. He told them it was the central hub for Cruz's entire operation. Acting on the information provided by Marcus Patterson, a joint task force of FBI agents and the Gary Police Department organized a raid. The target was a sprawling, decaying structure that was a relic of the city's industrial past. In late November, tactical teams converged on the location. They breached the building and found a fully operational human trafficking hub hidden within the rusting shell of the factory. The conditions were grim, designed to hold people against their will. Inside, law enforcement found and rescued 7 young women. They were between the ages of 18 and 23, from various cities across the Midwest, all lured by similar false promises. The discovery was a major victory for the task force, confirming Patterson's confession about Donnell Cruz's criminal enterprise. But for the investigators focused on the case that started it all, the raid ended in devastating failure. As they accounted for each of the rescued women, the grim reality became clear. Destiny Williams was not among them. The news was a devastating blow to her family, extinguishing the last flicker of hope that she might be found alive. The raid had successfully dismantled the dangerous trafficking ring, but it had also turned a missing person case into a probable homicide investigation. The question was no longer if Destiny had been taken, but what had happened to her after Marcus Patterson drove her away from that parking lot. With Destiny Williams still missing, the full pressure of the federal investigation turned on the men apprehended in the Gary warehouse raid. Patterson's confession had given them the trafficking ring, but he did not know Destiny's final fate. Investigators began the systematic interrogation of Donnell Cruz and his lieutenants, leveraging the threat of life sentences to break their code of silence. Under the intense pressure, one of Cruz's senior associates finally confessed. His story erased any hope that Destiny might have escaped. He admitted that the plan had gone wrong from the very beginning. When Destiny got into Marcus Patterson's car in the Calumet City parking lot, she quickly realized that the situation was not what it seemed. She fought back with everything she had. In the violent struggle that took place inside the vehicle, Destiny was critically injured. The associate explained that a panicked Patterson, never intending for things to turn violent, immediately called Cruz for instructions. Cruz, displaying a chilling lack of concern, simply dispatched another member of his crew to the location to handle the problem. Destiny Williams was killed in or near that parking lot on the afternoon of September 18th. The confession provided the horrifying how and why of her disappearance, confirming she had been murdered within minutes of being abducted. But it left one final critical question unanswered, both for the investigators and her grieving family. Where was her body? Guided by the detailed confession from Donnell Cruz's associate, authorities launched a search in early December. The search area was a desolate stretch of woodland off Interstate 94, just across the state line between New Buffalo and Bridgman, Michigan. It was there, nearly 3 months after she vanished from the gas station parking lot, that investigators found the body of Destiny Williams. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma and strangulation, confirming the violent struggle described by the informant. She had been left there since the day of her abduction. The case that began with a missing person report concluded with a complete dismantling of a multi-state trafficking ring. Marcus Patterson, the man who presented himself as a corporate professional, was charged with kidnapping resulting in death and conspiracy. His cooperation saved him from a potential death penalty, but he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Donnell Cruz, the ringleader who preyed on Patterson's desperation, was arrested in Detroit and also received a life sentence. 4 other men connected to the operation were convicted on various federal charges, effectively shuttering the entire criminal enterprise. Destiny Williams, who fought for her life and for her future, was not just a victim, but the unwilling catalyst that brought down a dangerous criminal organization. Her ambition and courage, even in her final minutes, saved others.